So I've received a few comments about guilt and shame. And quite often, if you're neurodivergent, you will hold a lot of guilt and shame. I have been on a journey to try and release some of this shame and to forgive myself and to let go of this constant drive to not let people down. This over-consuming, like looming feeling that you're a failure and that you're just a burden to everyone. You're not alone with this feeling, and I'll share some of the things that I've learned along my journey when it comes to understanding where this guilt comes from. Kind of messed that up a bit. So anyways, the source of this guilt, the source of the shame, where does it come from? And for someone with undiagnosed autism, this source of shame and guilt, this came from the fact that we live in a society where basically self-sacrifice is heavily encouraged. You hear people talk about how selfish you are if you don't sacrifice your time and well-being for society, your family, and there's a lot of toxic thought pools to sacrifice yourself for something greater than you. Obviously, this is bad for everyone, regardless if you're neurodivergent. You should not sacrifice your mind and body. This is what they want you to do, essentially. So anyways, going back to a neurodivergent childhood where this starts. And if you remember, when you first start getting burnout when you're autistic, you'll notice you will be encouraged to not slow down and to not rest. You will be seen as selfish and lazy. You get told from a young age that it's lazy and selfish to rest and to be a part-timer and to go at your own pace. I was supposed to be like an Egyptian eye. So anyways, yeah, we all basically get whipped into providing for society and to basically become workaholics. This is bad for everyone. But the worst part is a lot of us with like autism and other neurodiversities, our tolerance is a lot weaker for the societal standard. So once I realized where a lot of these feelings of shame came from, that they weren't my shame, this was other people's insecurities put onto me. And I realized that a lot of my guilt came from people in my life who had very toxic expectations of what I should be. I've ruined this. Oh my god. This feeling of not being enough usually comes from trying to live up to someone else's standards. Whether that, usually a parent, it's usually a parent who puts a lot of stake in your achievements. So when exploring my feelings of guilt, I realized that you are not selfish for trying to live sustainably. It is not selfish to put your best interests first. Living sustainably is not selfish. And I think this feeling of guilt that I have is very much an old feeling. It is no longer relevant to my day-to-day life. This feeling of guilt is an ancient feeling from a lifetime of conditioning. The general feedback that a lot of us, especially undiagnosed neurodivergent people, experience, we're essentially constantly corrected on our behaviors. We're repeatedly shown that we're not doing it right. We're repeatedly shown, we're repeatedly told that we are defective. And once you realize that you are neurodivergent, you should never measure yourself against a neurotypical person and what they can do. In fact, you should never measure yourself against anyone. Measuring yourself up to the achievements of your siblings, your parents, someone you admire, you will likely disappoint yourself. You should never measure yourself up against anyone. It's not fair to ourselves to have someone else's standards. So I'll finish this video with just giving you a few tips of things that I've found useful for debunking this feeling of guilt that came from childhood trauma and being neurodivergent in a neurotypical world, these high expectations that I've put on myself, that I beat myself up over for not meeting. So I have set my own standards. I have set the bar relatively low. And I remind myself every day that other people's judgment is their insecurities. That's not my insecurity, that is their insecurity. They are having second-hand embarrassment. They are maybe narcissistic, and they are trying to give you their insecurities. They're trying to pass on their insecurities. They're not yours. A lot of these feelings of guilt come from other people's standards. And remember, you're doing nothing wrong by just existing and trying to stay alive. For a lot of us, being autistic is a full-time job in itself, and you should respect that getting through the day is hard enough without piling on other activities and things that like other people seem to do. Remember, we can't automatically take care of a lot of internal operations. They need our full attention. We need more time to rest. We need to honor ourselves and our bodies. We need a lot of time to rest, basically. I hope you continue to let go of these feelings of guilt. These expectations do not apply to you, and you are enough. You are enough just being here. I think I've mentioned this in earlier videos, but if you find yourself slipping into people-pleasing behaviors, don't beat yourself up about it, but just remember, it is really hard to learn to say no. It's really difficult because it's so deeply tied with letting people down, feeling guilty for not being able to do something or to not want to do something. But again, not saying no, people-pleasing at your own detriment is a form of masking. And it will lead to a life that is unsustainable, that you wouldn't want to live. Constant burnout from people-pleasing, saying yes to everything. Again, it's not your fault that we're like this. It is a result of essentially trying to cope in a neurotypical world. Learning to say no is unmasking at its core. So letting go of guilt ties nicely in with unmasking, which I will make more videos on. So keep setting boundaries and keep reminding yourself that saying no isn't selfish and that we didn't arrive here with guilt, and we can certainly break through and learn to not be guilty for just existing. Shame heals slowly. Progress will happen from the hundreds of small things that you do. Keep going with this neurological, spiritual alchemy. Just remember that you watching this video probably grew up undiagnosed, and it's hard to get rid of this lifetime feedback that you are doing something wrong. It takes a long time to rewire yourself to not feel like you are constantly doing something wrong. Societal feedback from our teachers, our parents, we feel like we're getting told off all the time. I don't know about you, but I feel like my entire teenage years and early 20s, up until very recently, I operated on how do I not get told off? Context equals forgiveness. We are not broken. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate and love every single person who watches my videos. Self-trust is the foundation of the road to self-acceptance. We'll get there. Goodbye.